Hey everyone, tonight we'll delve into the untold epic of Poseidon's lost trident, a weapon so mighty its disappearance shook the very foundations of the cosmos. As you listen, imagine you are standing on the dark, spray-swept shores of the Aegean, the waves churning with a primordial rage that hints at the story's secret. Feel the salt wind and hear the distant melancholic bellow of some sea creature that knows the true meaning of loss. We're not talking about a simple, forgotten artifact. We're talking about the silent pacts and deep-seated grudges among the deities that cause this profound void. It's a reality check. The ancient mysteries of the Olympians are far darker and more complex than the myths let on. You probably woe and want to believe what you are about to hear about the petty rivalries and cosmic consequences hidden within Greek mythology. So, before the tension gets too high, take a moment to like the episode and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight, and what's the local time? Post it in the comments. Now, close your eyes, imagine the ancient mountains, and let's unravel this epic tale together. The silence is what wakes you. It's not a mere absence of sound, but a vast, crushing quiet that swallows the familiar, endless roar of the abyss. You are Poseidon, the earth-shaker, lying in the deepest, most shielded chamber of your palace, beneath the waves. And you feel the weight of water upon you, yet you hear nothing of its rhythmic song. It's a terrifying sensory deprivation, a vacuum in your divine perception. You sit up, and the deep-sea corals that form your bedchamber glow with a muted, unsettling light. Your hand reaches instinctively to the accustomed place beside your carved stone headboard. This is not a place for jewels or simple treasures. It is the resting point for the very core of your being, the artifact that channels the raw, tectonic power of the deep. Your hand sweeps across the smooth, cool stone. It finds nothing. The trident is gone. This is no ordinary loss, no simple misplacement. The trident is not just a tool. It is a siphon, a conductor, and an anchor. It is the physical manifestation of your domain's stability. Without it, the vast, tumultuous power of the global ocean which you tame and focus daily is suddenly untethered. You swing your powerful legs over the side of the bed. The water around you barely stirs, a sign of the profound lethargy that has instantly afflicted your element. As you stride through the palace corridors, usually vibrant with the light play of sun filtering through millions of gallons of water, you notice the shift. The currents are sluggish. The normally vibrant bioluminescent algae that coat the walls are dimming like old dying stars. You feel a subtle, yet terrifying cosmic echo of the loss. Across the world, a ripple of instability begins, imperceptible to mortals, but a deafening alarm to the deities. Along the fault lines where tectonic plates grind against each other, the pressure fluctuates erratically. Small, isolated fishing villages in the Mediterranean suddenly find their daily tide tables inexplicably erratic. Ships hundreds of miles away report their magnetic compasses spinning wildly, their rudders fighting an invisible changing current. It's an immediate global sign that the sea's divine regulator has vanished. The loss of the trident also triggers a bizarre physiological effect on you. For centuries, the trident has absorbed the residual seismic energy that you, as Earthshaker, constantly manage. Now, that raw, unfocused energy has nowhere to go but back into your own divine form. You feel an agonizing, low-grade thrumming like being continuously exposed to the infrasound of a distant, massive earthquake. This is one of the quirky or bizarre details of the deity's relationship with the artifact. The trident acts as Poseidon's divine lightning rod, grounding his own explosive temperament. Without it, he is a walking, repressed volcano. One mainstream historical fact surfaces immediately in your mind, twisting the knife. You remember the local legends from the city of Helic, an Achaean city on the northern coast of the Peloponnese, which was utterly submerged in 373 BC by an earthquake and tidal wave. Mortals believed then, many later historians theorized that the cataclysm was a punishment from you. But you know the truth. Those were moments of uncontrolled power, of the trident briefly escaping your full command. The weapon has always held a dangerous independence. You ascend rapidly, breaching the surface in a spectacular rush of foam near the island of Delos. Traditionally, the birthplace of Apollo and Artemis. You look toward Mount Olympus. The great marble city of the gods is visible in the clear dawn light, but it seems distant, almost illusory. The question that pierces your mounting divine panic is this. The palace's wards are tied directly to your seismic signature. No being mortal, hero, or deity could have entered and taken the trident without waking the very ocean itself. But the question that remained was, how could the weapon of the sea be stolen without the sea itself registering the violation? You prepare to call the Olympian Council, but the thrumming in your bones suggests a far more insidious plot than mere theft. It implies collaboration, or worse, a betrayal so deep it reached into the elemental matrix of the cosmos. You materialize within the Great Hall, a place of polished obsidian and crystal where the Olympian Council is hastily gathering. The sheer, vibrant light that usually floods this chamber, light born from the unclouded divine radiance of Zeus, feels notably diminished, a fact that instantly heightens your paranoia. Zeus sits upon his grand throne of polished ivory and gold, but his typical air of jovial, absolute authority is strained. The king of the gods is visibly agitated, his movements abrupt, but with a defensive, almost anxious grip. "Brother," he booms, the sound rattling the ethereal windows, "your arrival is timed." I felt the tremors, a subtle, cold shiver in the cosmic fabric. It was not a seaquake, but a disruption. What madness has been allowed to fester? You stand before him, the raw, uncontrolled power you now harbor, making the air around you smell faintly of ozone and crushed stone. My trident is stolen, Zeus, gone, not just misplaced, but removed from the deepest sanctuary of the ocean. It is a wound in the very idea of my domain. The council reacts not with outrage, but with quiet, profound fear. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, fingers the rim of her helmet, her keen gray eyes immediately calculating vectors of impossibility. Ares, the god of war, normally a volatile fire, is unnaturally still. His expression a mixture of grudging respect for the thief's audacity and cold, strategic appraisal. This initial reaction on Olympus reveals a crucial psychological intrigue among the deities. Their profoundest fear is not of external threat, but of the unraveling of their ordered structure. The stolen trident is not merely a weapon. It's one of the three pillars of cosmic power, forged after the Titanomachy to define the boundaries of sky, sea, and underworld. Its absence suggests that the old battle lines are meaningless. Zeus begins to bark orders, his voice regaining some tyrannical resonance, but his actions are contradictory. He calls for Hermes to scout the heavens, and for Artemis to search the wildlands. But he pointedly avoids suggesting a search of the underworld, or any deep reconnaissance among the oldest, most marginalized entities of their world. This avoidance is the core of the quiet paranoia gripping the council. Zeus knows better than anyone that the trident's unique metallurgy and its bizarre function were tied to older, darker pacts, secrets he thought were buried forever beneath the rubble of the Titanomachy. Here's the quirky detail about the trident's function that only Zeus truly understands. The trident isn't just a weapon to conjure storms. It's also a complex celestial tuner. In its handle, Hephaestus, guided by Zeus, installed a tiny, vibrating shard of crystallized chaos, a remnant from the first moments of creation. This shard, when properly tuned by Poseidon, ensured that the water cycle of the earth evaporation, condensation, rain would always serve the current cosmic order. Without it, the weather patterns will not merely become chaotic. They will begin to develop agency, acting according to forgotten, primordial laws. A mainstream historical fact flashes across your own thoughts. You recall the historical accounts of the ancient Mycenaean civilization, a thriving Bronze Age culture that suddenly collapsed around the 12th century BC. Unremembered time of the boiling seas preceded their downfall. This legend, often dismissed as poetic exaggeration, now seems chillingly relevant. Could the trident have been briefly taken, even then, causing that rapid destabilization? No physical entry. Athena finally speaks, her voice calm but razor-sharp. Then it was not taken by force, uncle. It was taken by access. By one who knows your method, your ritual, and the one true flaw in the Cyclops' forging. Zeus silences her with a sharp gesture, refusing to delve into the ancient flaws. The truth is, he fears the political implication. If the world realizes one of the three great powers is vulnerable, the entire Olympian regime is undermined. But the question that remained was, why would an external enemy choose stealth over overwhelming force, unless the thief's power lay not in strength, but in intimate, forgotten knowledge. The light continues to fade slightly in the great hall, mirroring the subtle growing dread. You leave the stifling, paranoid atmosphere of Olympus. The mountain's fading light, a visual testament to the god's waning confidence. The obvious next step is to confront the third power, the Lord of the Dead, Hades. While the dynamic between the three brothers Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades is often described by mortals as a simple rivalry for power, the reality is a complicated weave of mutual dependence and deep-seated shared trauma from the Titanomachy. You descend into the chilling, light-swallowing darkness of the underworld, into the domain of your brother Hades. The air here is heavy, silent, and cold, scented with minerals and the profound stillness of the grave. You arrive at the gates of the palace of Hades, where the three-headed dog, Cerberus, greets you not with hostility, but with a low, mournful whimper. Even the creature of the abyss senses the cosmic perturbation caused by the missing trident. Hades is waiting, seated on his throne of ebony and volcanic rock, next to his silent queen, Persephone. Unlike Zeus, Hades is neither panicked nor overtly suspicious. He looks at you with a profound, almost weary understanding. His scrutiny is silent but intensely powerful, focused not on your guilt, but on the whole you represent in the cosmic order. Brother, he greets you, his voice a dry, echoing murmur. You come seeking what I already know is lost. The sea is unnaturally quiet. Souls arriving here are restless, carrying fragmented memories of storms that weren't and tides that failed. You immediately accuse him. The underworld is vast. You harbor the dispossessed, the vengeful. The trident is power, Hades. Did one of your ancient prisoners escape? Did you, perhaps, seek to tip the scales against Zeus? Hades lets out a soft, dry laugh, a sound rarely heard and deeply unsettling. I rule a realm of absolute stability. My domain is defined by death, the most unshakable truth. What need have I of a fickle weapon of the surface? Power that ebbs and flows is the concern of the living Poseidon. Furthermore, he leans forward, his helmeted head casting a deep shadow. If I wished to challenge our brother, I would use the armies of the dead, not a weapon of water and stone. The thief is not a creature of shadow. His insight is immediate and unnerving. Hades knows the nature of the loss, hints at a deeper, forgotten history. He understands that the thief is not seeking to gain power, but to undo a specific act of power from the past. Here is the quirky detail Hades offers. He notes the manner of the theft. The trident, unlike the master bolt or my helm of darkness, was not just a tool for war. It was a lock. It sealed a specific weakness of the earth, primordial seam in the fabric of your domain that even Zeus feared. The thief knew this and took the key. This revelation forces you to remember an ancient, terrifying mainstream historical fact, often deliberately obscured by Olympian chroniclers. The story of the Ophiuchus, this bizarre creature, half serpent, half bull, whose entrails, when burned, gave the one who performed the rite the power to defeat the gods. It was killed in the early days, but the location of its entrails, the true center of this primal vulnerability, was secured by a specific magical warding ritual involving the trident. The trident, then, is tied to the most foundational secret of the god's rule. Hades, ever the silent scholar of history, confirms this. The theft is an attack on the order we established, not the thrones we occupy. Look not for a vengeful god, brother, but for an entity consumed by ancient mysteries and the desire to restore a pre-Olympian chaos. He offers you something unexpected, a small, dark shard of crystallized prophecy. It is brittle and heavy, with the raw weight of untold history. When the trident was forged, a whisper of a future possibility was accidentally captured in the metal, a fragment of a titan's curse. The Cyclops thought he sealed it, failed. This shard is the echo. You take the shard. It's cold, but faintly pulses with a strange subsonic rhythm. The prophecy speaks of a cyclical weapon loss, not a single event, suggesting that the theft is merely the latest manifestation of a deeper, recurring cosmic flaw. But the question that remained was, why would the thief not immediately use the power if their goal was chaos? The silence following the theft was the most deafening proof of a calculated, long-term plan. Hades watches you leave, his gaze a silent commitment to stability, is warned you. The shard of crystallized prophecy from Hades burns faintly in your palm, though it emanates a chill that seems to penetrate divine flesh. You ascend from the underworld, but you do not return to the surface world. Instead, you descend into the pit of Tartarus, the crushing, eternal prison of the vanquished Titans. This is a desperate, dangerous move, a violation of the fragile truce that maintains order. Tartarus is a place of profound dread and sensory overload, vast echoing chasm where the very air is thick with the weight of raw, chaotic energy. The sounds here are not of the natural world, but the endless, agonized groans of colossal beings and the grinding of geological time. You navigate through the eternal storm of pitch and fire, drawn by the faint rhythmic pulse of the shard. The shard leads you to the prison of Krios, one of the elder Titans, bound in chains of solidified light forged by Hephaestus. He is not a physical threat now, merely a colossal ruin of the past, his consciousness a fractured web of ancient memory and perpetual bitterness. As you approach, the shard in your hand vibrates violently, syncing with the Titan's tormented rhythm. The Titan's voice, a slow grinding sound, like continental plates shifting, echoes in your mind, not your ears. The sea has forgotten its shape. Little god, Krios rasps. The Cyclops' lock is broken. The third cycle begins. You demand to know what he means by the third cycle. Krios reveals the terrifying, fragmented prophecy. The trident, he explains, was not simply forged. It was reforged 3 times. The first time was in the dawn of the world, a tool of the primordial sea god, Pontus. The second time was during the first clash of the protogods, lost and regained. And your trident the Olympian one is the third iteration. Each loss signals a cosmic reset, a moment when the fundamental structure of the current age is vulnerable to the forces it replaced. This revelation that the weapon's loss is cyclical is the Titan's hidden warning. Krios explains that the weakness is tied to a fatal design flaw, a quirky detail insisted upon by Zeus himself. Zeus, consumed by the desire to permanently sever the new Olympian age from the previous one, demanded that a sliver of the Titan's own subjugated power be woven into the Trident-S core. This was intended as a lock to prevent its use by any remnants of the old order. Krios, with grim satisfaction, details the paradox. To bind a Titan, you used a Titan's essence. But essence recognizes its kin. The Trident now carries a faint, continuous, subliminal call to the ancient mysteries of the deep, a call that no Olympian can hear, but which any true son of the earth understands. The mainstream historical fact that relates to this is the ancient Greek concept of chaos not as disorder, but as the gaping void and the progenitor of all things, including the Titans. The Titans were seen as the children of the earth Gaia and sky Uranus. Their power was elemental and raw. The inclusion of their essence means the Trident is inherently unstable when removed from the constant regulating presence of its owner. The one who took it, Krios continues, his voice cracking with dry contempt, did not need force. They needed only silence. They knew when the Sea Lord's heart was quietest, when his own mind was most focused on the surface world and its mortals. The thief is a creature of recessive power, a forgotten lineage obsessed with restoring the Earth's natural, untamed rhythm. He issues the final, chilling sentence of the prophecy. The cycle ends not when the trident is found, but when it is plunged into the Earth's true, vulnerable heart, the place where the Sea People's ancient mysteries are buried. You realize the profound implication. The thief is not interested in controlling the sea, but in unmaking the controlled sea to return the world to a state of perpetual, natural anarchy. But the question that remained was, who among the mortals or the demigods possessed the precise ancient lineage, the quiet knowledge, and the profound patience to wait for the exact moment of Poseidon's psychological vulnerability? You leave the horrific depths of Tartarus, Titan-S words, echoing the truth. The loss of the Trident is an act of cosmic long-term vengeance. Emerging from the depths of Tartarus, you're burdened by the Titan's curse and the grim truth of the Trident's cyclical nature. Your immediate return is not to your palace, but to seek out your queen, Amphitrite. She, more than any other, has intimate knowledge of your routines, your vulnerabilities, and the rhythm of the deepest palace. You find Amphitrite in her private grotto, a place shielded by powerful enchantments, where the light is perpetual twilight. She is not weeping or frantic. Instead, she is unnervingly composed, her long flowing hair of sea-green tendrils floating around her like sorrowful kelp. Her eyes, usually the serene blue of a calm ocean, hold a deep, crystalline coldness, a long-held, bitter resentment that has been slowly accumulating over millennia of marriage to a fickle, often absent deity. "You look upon me with suspicion, my lord," she observes, her voice devoid of warmth, like the crackle of deep-sea ice. "Do you think I would steal the very artifact that ensures the stability of the home I preside over?" The guards were undisturbed. The wards were not broken. You alone. "No, the ritual silence," you state, your own voice flat, with the effort of repressing the seismic energy still surging within you. Amphitrite rises, and her movement causes a ripple in the surrounding water that subtly shifts the temperature. "The ritual silence, yes, but it is not a secret, Poseidon. It is a quirky detail of your own divine arrogance. Every night before you truly sleep, you enact the ritual of the great stillness." She then reveals the crucial, strange detail about your sleeping ritual. To truly rest from the constant, demanding psychic management of the world's currents, you do not simply drift off. You temporarily partition your divine consciousness, focusing the bulk of your power into the trident, effectively making the trident the active sea god for a brief period, usually 2 hours before true dawn. This act of transference makes you, for that window, functionally mortal and deeply vulnerable, a psychological state born from your deep trust in the artifact. This is the moment when the trident could be removed without triggering a seismic alarm. The thief didn't need to break into the palace. They needed to wait for the sea god to leave his own body. "I know this because for every night of our marriage, I have waited for that moment," she confesses, her bitterness raw. That brief, silent window when you are not the powerful, roving lord of the seas, but a simple, trusting fool who relies on an artifact more than his own heart. Her resentment stems from the realization that you, the great earthshaker, valued the cold, metallic reliability of the weapon over the living emotional bond with your queen. You recall a mainstream historical fact that perfectly illustrates her state, the fate of Io, one of the many mortals seduced by Zeus, who was then relentlessly persecuted by Hera. The divine wives, no matter how powerful, often share a collective agony of abandonment and betrayal by the primary male deities. Amphitrite is channeling that ancient justified rage, but her current calmness suggests a chilling detachment, not collaboration. "I did not take it," she concludes, fixing you with her cold gaze. "But I heard something, a sound no one else would notice. Just as the stillness ended, I heard a flickering like a dying hearth, or a pearl breaking open." She explains that the sound was too light for a weapon, too soft for a physical entity. It was the sound of a psychological transition, an oral signature of energy shifting or a veil lifting. "The thief was not someone who knew how to take it, but someone who knew why you allowed it to be taken," she whispers. "They knew the secret of your hubris, Lord Poseidon. Your divine power is vast, but your personal vigilance is momentary." But the question that remained was, what kind of entity or lineage possesses the ancient knowledge of the Trident-S ritual and the divine patience to monitor? The sleep of a god for an opportunity that lasts only 2 hours per cycle? The answer must lie not with the current Olympians, but with the lost histories you and Zeus have worked so hard to bury. Amphitrite's chilling detail about the flickering sound and the ritual of the great stillness shifts your search from a cosmic hunt to a forensic investigation. The key is no longer who took it, but how the thief knew the ritual and what they used to absorb the energy signature. This leads you, inevitably, to the source of the Trident-S power, the ancestral forges of the Cyclops beneath Mount Etna. You plunge into the churning, magmaless depths of the volcano. The Cyclopes, Brantes, Stirrups, and Argezors were the primordial smiths who forged the master bolt, the helm of darkness, and the trident, and they are creatures of immense, raw, and often grumpy power. You find only one, Hephaestus's assistant, a surly, one-eyed giant named Jages, working amidst the fire and the rhythmic metallic clang of their titanic hammers. The very air here smells of sulfur, molten iron, and the raw, untamed essence of the earth. You show Gyges the shard of prophecy given by Hades, explaining the theft and the Titan's warning. The Cyclops takes the shard, his massive fingers surprisingly delicate. He throws it into a small pool of pure bubbling lava where it floats, not dissolving, but vibrating with a terrifyingly high-pitched, inaudible whine. The resonance of the great stillness, Gyges grunts, his voice a gravelly boom. The signal is in the metal itself, which is not a flaw, Lord, but a seal. He begins to explain the trace of the material, the bizarre detail about its alloy. The Cyclopes, he confirms, followed Zeus's instruction to weave a sliver of Titan essence into the core. But they also had to stabilize it with an ancient rare metal, Calypsian iron, a naturally occurring Cutencity alloy found only in the deepest forgotten trenches of the Sea People's territory. This iron has a unique, almost biological property. It absorbs and nullifies sound and energy waves below a certain frequency. It is, essentially, a magical insulator. The thief was able to nullify the low-frequency seismic hum that is your sleeping heartbeat, Gyges explains, because they used an artifact made of, or heavily coated in, Calypsian iron. It allowed them to move within the 2-hour window of your vulnerability without registering on the palace's seismic wards. This connects the theft directly to the vanished civilization of the Sea People, a historical civilization briefly mentioned in ancient mysteries and certain Egyptian chronicles, whose existence the Olympians actively suppressed. The Cyclops then drops the most critical, quirky detail of the forging process. The Calypsian Iron Lord does not bond perfectly with divine bronze. It creates a temporary, microscopically thin seam in the shaft near the central Tina seam that only opens. When the trident is subjected to a precise sonic frequency, the flickering sound the queen heard, this wasn't a weakness, it was a security measure. The only way to open this seam was by striking the trident with a specifically tuned anti-seismic frequency, which would cause the Calypsian core to briefly separate from the divine shell, essentially resetting the power link. The thief didn't steal it. They caused it to eject its core, which they then simply picked up. The mainstream historical facts surfaces in your divine consciousness. The historical records of the Hittites and the Egyptian pharaoh, Ramses III, speak of a mysterious confederacy known simply as the Kea, peoples often associated with the Peliset or early Philistines, among others, who launched devastating raids across the eastern Mediterranean around the 12th century BC. While mortals debate their origin, they were the last remaining civilization granted sacred knowledge of the deep by the primordial sea gods. Their sudden disappearance was a direct consequence of the Olympian consolidation of power. The theft, then, is directly linked to the remnants of this lost, highly knowledgeable culture. The thief is seeking the trident not for its power, but for its cord, to reverse the Olympian lock on the ocean's primal, chaotic nature. But the question that remained was, how did a lineage of mortals, or demigods, from a supposedly extinct civilization retain the knowledge of the Cyclops? Sonic signature lock across millennia. Unless a god had deliberately preserved that knowledge, you leave the forge, the heat of the magma now feeling cold against the burning truth. The connection to the Sea People, a ghost civilization whose sophisticated knowledge of metallurgy in the sea was deliberately erased by the Olympians, provides the first solid lead. You must now delve into the darkest corners of your own watery dominion. The forgotten trenches and sunless canyons that once housed their cities. You dismiss the idea of a simple archaeological search. The Sea People's remnants are guarded not by stone and rubble, but by powerful, self-aware magical wards that react only to the psychic signature of an Olympian. Your quest takes you to the Ionian Basin, a vast, unexplored region of the Mediterranean where the ocean floor drops into a seemingly bottomless abyss. As you descend, the water grows colder, and the pressure becomes immense, forcing even your divine form to focus its energy. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the rhythmic deep-sea clicks of creatures that have never seen light. You eventually discover the ruins of a great city, not of stone, but of a strange black, glass-like material obsidian alloy that absorbs all light. This is the last remaining city of the Sea People, preserved in an endless stasis field. As you enter the main thoroughfare, the remnants of the civilization whisper to you, You see colossal, intricate machinery designed to manipulate hydrothermal vents and deep-sea currents. The sea people did not worship the Olympians. They studied, understood, and utilized the elemental forces that the gods merely commanded. The mainstream historical fact is the historical uncertainty surrounding the sea people. While Egyptian and Hittite texts mention their destructive arrival, their precise origin remains one of the greatest ancient mysteries of the Bronze Age collapse. Mortals speculate on various origins from Sicily to Anatolia. The truth you now see is that they were a cohesive civilization, a kind of pre-Olympian, high-tech Atlantean culture, wiped out not by natural disaster but by divine decree. Within a grand, ruined library carved into the obsidian, you find a collection of crystalline scrolls. The scrolls detail the history of their cooperation with the primordial sea gods and crucially, their forced alliance with the Cyclops during the forging of the Olympian artifacts. They were the ones who provided the Chalipsian iron and the scientific sonic formulas to stabilize the chaotic energy within the trident. The quirky detail revealed here is a ritualistic object left behind. A small, hollow orb of perfectly polished Chalipsian iron designed to fit into a child's hand. The scrolls explain that every child of the highest lineage of the sea people was gifted one of these orbs. Its purpose was to train them in sonic resonance, the ability to focus their life force into a perfectly pitched, silent wave that could interact with the iron. It was their equivalent of a school project, a lesson in controlling their environment. The thief would have been one of these children, or a direct descendant who inherited the orb and the knowledge. The scrolls identify the specific lineage, the House of Sauron, family of priest-kings, who were the Trident's first mortal-level guardians before the Olympian Age. Their last recorded ruler, a minor king of a small landlocked kingdom, vanished after the Sea People's final great defeat. You realize the profound irony. The tool meant to secure your power has been undone by the very people whose existence your power was meant to erase. The theft is an act of historical reclamation. But the question that remained was, where did the House of Sauron flee when their coastal kingdom was destroyed, and what single immense power could they have allied with to preserve their knowledge and lineage for so long, waiting for the precise moment of your vulnerability? The answer must connect the sea people to the surface world's power structures, perhaps even to the lineage of a great hero or king. The trail of the House of Sauron, the royal lineage of the vanished sea people, leads you reluctantly toward the human world, a place of petty squabbles and fleeting lives you usually disdain. Your investigation centers on the last known geographical area associated with the sea people before their disappearance, the coast of Argos and the Argolid Plain, the ancient heartland of the Mycenaean civilization. You begin to track the ancestral power of the Trident's first mortal guardians, realizing that this is not a random theft by a demigod but a centuries-long, deeply focused vendetta by a powerful mortal king. The current bearer of the Sauron lineage, you deduce, must be a figure of immense political and strategic importance, one whose power structure is discreetly insulated from Olympian interference. You identify a specific dynasty in the Peloponnese, known in later history for their subtle political longevity and consistent avoidance of public alignment with any single Olympian deity, the often overlooked yet highly influential royal line that eventually provided a key figure in the Trojan War. This king is not a demigod or a great hero of brute strength, but a strategist, scholar of ancient mysteries, and a masterful manipulator of both myth and history. His secret weapon is the archival memory of his lineage, passed down through blood and the strange Chalipsian orbs. Here is the quirky detail about this king's method of governance. His kingdom is geographically positioned over a massive, dormant geothermal spring. He does not use this power for simple heat or water. Instead, the spring's low, consistent pressure is used to subtly affect the surrounding region's rainfall, an agricultural output ensuring his people are never dependent on the often capricious moods of the Olympian weather gods. His power is purely pragmatic and environmentally based. The mainstream historical fact you recall is the ancient tradition of the Argive succession, the complex and often bloody transfer of power in the region of Argos. What is often missed in the historical texts is the unusual longevity of one specific, minor royal line among the Argive Clanza lineage that repeatedly produced scholars, cartographers, and naval engineers rather than just warriors. This line was obsessively interested in recording and preserving the precise location of certain geological features: fault lines, abyssal plains, and underwater springs. You realize the significance of this geographical obsession. King is not preparing to fight a war. He is preparing to re-engineer the planet's hydrology. The current king, known only by the cryptic name of Titanomachy, operates under a cloak of obscurity, a masterful defense against divine notice. He rarely makes grand decrees, yet his influence subtly shapes regional politics. He is tied to the trident not by ambition, but by the generational promise to restore the sea people's memory and break the Olympian monopoly on the ocean's untamed nature. Your investigation of his ancestral archives reveals the chilling truth. The Saran lineage believes that the trident, while currently channeling your power, is fundamentally a sea people artifact. They do not see it as stolen, but as reclaimed. Their goal is to use the sonic frequency lock, the one the Cyclops showed you, to permanently sever the trident, its connection to Poseidon, and bind it to the earth. As primordial self-regulating currents, the very power source the Olympians conquered. Kaidas, the secretive king, is the unseen hand. He provided the intelligence, the artifact, the orb of Chalipsy iron, the lineage to someone else, someone who could enter the divine space without suspicion. But the question that remained was, if the king himself was the strategist, who was the physical agent? The hero or deity he dispatched to cross the cosmic barrier and retrieve the trident? That agent must be someone capable of accessing the palace, knowing the ritual, and being linked to the king's bloodline. The trail has gone cold on the identity of Kaidas' agent, the physical thief. You need a shift in perspective, a broader view of the conflict's history. Your attention is drawn to the most volatile place in your domain, the site of the greatest seismic event in the mortal historical record, the volcanic island of Santorini or ancient Thera. You descend upon the caldera, the enormous, submerged volcanic crater where a massive eruption occurred around 1600 BC. This event fundamentally reshaped the Aegean, leading to the collapse of the Minoan civilization, a classic example of the catastrophic power of the deities. You land on the central volcanic island, Nea Kameni, where the earth is still warm and sulfurous. Gas vents hiss from the cracked rock. This is a place you often visit, not to cause destruction, but to manage and vent the immense internal pressure of the earth. It's a geological pressure release valve. The eruption of Thera, you now realize, was not simply a natural disaster. It was subtly connected to your early power and a test run of the trident's cosmic capabilities. As you stand on the precipice, looking down at the dark water filling the caldera, a spectral memory takes form. You see a vision of yourself, younger, more volatile, and less controlled. Standing here right after the forging of the trident, you were experimenting with its true function, the ability to command not just the surface waves but the very magma flow of the planet. The quirky detail revealed by this memory is the trident's original test. You attempted to stabilize the caldera's pressure using the trident's sonic frequency, locked the same frequency the thief used, but the raw Titan essence in the core, the part Zeus insisted upon, reacted violently. Instead of stabilizing, the frequency amplified the magma's volatility, resulting in the cataclysmic explosion. This mainstream historical fact, the Thera eruption, is now seen in a new light. Mortals later attributed the destruction of the Minoans to various things. But historians often note the almost magical completeness of the destruction. It wasn't just an eruption. It was a cosmic overload. The loss of Minoan civilization, with its intricate connections to the sea, was the first great consequence of the Olympian trident's volatile, unstable power. This memory is the key. Kaidas' lineage, the sea people, would have been acutely aware of this colossal, early failure. They did not only want to reclaim the trident to restore their lineage, they wanted to seize it to prevent the arrogant, destabilizing misuse of its power by the Olympians, as exemplified by Santorini. You realize the true depth of the enemy's psychological intrigue. They are operating from a position of righteous, historically justified fear. They believe the Olympians are too volatile, too egotistical, to responsibly wield a tool capable of destroying entire planetary systems. As you touch the sulfurous rock, you feel a faint residual energy trace. It's the unique signature of the Chalcopsian iron, the anti-seismic metal. The thief was here recently, not to cause more destruction, but to test the resonance of the stolen Trident's core against the Earth's most chaotic energy source. The testing site is not random. It's a specific underwater fissure deep within the caldera where the pressure is highest. The thief is calibrating the sonic frequency to achieve a greater goal than simple theft. They are preparing to deliver the final blow, to plunge the core into the Earth's true weak point, as the Titan Krios warned. But the question that remained was, why risk a test at such a volatile location unless the thief intended to create a distraction, a cover for their final, more devastating objective? The explosion of a volcano is the perfect distraction to draw the attention of the Lord of the Sea. The urgency intensifies. The thief is calibrating the weapon's core at key geological weak points, hinting at a final, coordinated act of cosmic sabotage. To predict the location of this final blow, you must turn to the one source of genuine, untainted foresight left in the world, the Oracle of Delphi. The journey to the sacred site on Mount Parnassus is a grim one. The oracle's power is waning in the age of the Olympians, prophecies often muted and ambiguous, a direct result of the god's successful suppression of the older, earth-based ancient mysteries. You find the Pythia, the priestess, who speaks the prophecy, not in the main temple, but in a small side chamber, tending a perpetually burning flame. She is old and frail, her eyes clouded, and she is unwilling to speak. Knowing the danger of speaking a truth that challenges the Olympian regime, you approach her, your presence the raw, uncontained energy of a god missing his anchor causes the air in the chamber to hum violently. You do not coerce her. You simply lay the shard of Titan prophecy and the small orb of Chalcopsian iron you recovered from the Sea People's city before her. The truth is already upon you, Lord Poseidon, she whispers, her voice a dry rattle. I see not the path forward, but the path retaken. She finally gives in, overcome by the sheer weight of history represented by the artifacts. As she inhales the sacred vapors, her body begins to tremble, and a cryptic, rhyming vision bursts forth. The water that held its master's wrath was broken by the one who shared the path. The Trident's theft, a brother's shadow cast, on land that knew the Sea Lord's fury last. Look to the name where hero finds his end, and where the Titan's curse begins to mend. This is the cryptic clue, a brother's shadow cast. This immediately implicates Zeus or Hades. But the Pythia's subsequent clarification twists the meaning. She reveals a quirky detail about the phrasing. The brother's shadow is not a god, but a mortal, a hero of the Sea People's lineage, whose existence was an early, subtle act of subversion against Zeus's authority. This hero's name is tied to a land that knew the Sea Lord's fury last, the destruction of the Minoan kingdom after the Thera eruption. The mainstream historical fact that aligns perfectly with this is the mythology surrounding Minos and the island of Crete. Minos, the great king of Crete, was famously connected to you, Poseidon, through the tale of the Cretan bull. More critically, the Minoan civilization, which collapsed after the Thera eruption, was the last great civilization that openly honored both the Earth Mother Gaia's lineage and the sea, your domain. Before the Olympians enforced their sky-centric dogma, the thief's goal is to undo the legacy of Minos and reclaim the old ways. The key to the thief's identity lies in the place where a hero finds his end. This points directly to the labyrinth of Crete, the prison of the Minotaur, and the story of Theseus. The Pythia's final. Exhausted words are a chilling psychological insight into the Olympian condition. The shadow is cast by the memory of a slight, a betrayal so deep that only a god could inflict it, and only a mortal could carry the rage for 1,000 years. The King Kydos is not merely seeking revenge for his people. He is seeking to redress a perceived cosmic betrayal. But the question that remained was, how does the labyrinth of Crete, an ancient human prison, contain a clue to the Trident's final cosmic destination, and how is the thief connected to the heroes who escaped it? The oracle has given you the place of the shadow, but not the shadow's name. Armed with the cryptic clue from the Pythia trail that leads to Crete and the memory of ancient betrayal, you need confirmation on the technical details of the Trident's vulnerabilities. This necessitates a second, more forceful visit to the forges of the gods and a conversation with the mastersmith himself. Hephaestus. Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship, is the only deity who intimately understands the complex, volatile alloy of divine metal and Titan essence. You find him working alone in his Olympian workshop, a vast cavern filled with autonomous mechanical servants and the smell of hot, processed or Hephaestus, often an ambivalent observer of Olympian dramas, is focused on a complex bronze automaton, ignoring the cosmic anxiety. Your missing tool is a matter of profound indifference to me, uncle, he grumbles, without looking up. I build, you destroy. Cycle is tedious. You place the Chalipsian orb on his workbench. The metal of the orb immediately reacts with the heat of the forge, vibrating silently, emitting the low, anti-seismic frequency that Amphitrite heard. Hephaestus stops his work abruptly, his single brow furrowed with professional concern. Chalipsian iron, the core is compromised. He confirms the theft was indeed an inside job, though not by a god, but by one who possessed divine-level knowledge and the ancient tools of the Sea People. He explains that his own loyalty is to the craft, not the crown. He confirms the quirky design flaw he built in, a technicality that now saves the weapon from immediate permanent severance. He reveals that the sonic frequency lock that causes the core to eject, the one used by the thief, is only a temporary state. The core is chemically and psychically bound to its divine shell. If the core is not completely reforged and rebound to a new power source within a short, defined window, a few solar days, the core will naturally seek to return to the shell, regardless of distance. I built it that way on purpose, Hephaestus confesses. I knew your brother Zeus wanted a weapon that was ultimately uncontrollable, an engine of chaos disguised as order. I put in a failsafe. The trident's core is like a migratory bird. It must return to its shell to survive. This means the thief is operating under extreme time pressure. They need to find the Earth's true weak point and plunge the core into it before the chemical and psychic bond with Poseidon compels its return. This mainstream historical fact gives you pause. The ancient Greek concept of Homeric metallurgy, the mythical ability of smiths like Hephaestus to create autonomous, self-correcting creations. The very idea that an artifact can choose to return to its rightful owner is woven into the earliest notions of divine craft. The trident is, fundamentally, loyal to its maker's intention stability, if its owner's actions often contradict that intention. The shadow you seek, Hephaestus continues, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper, is tied to my brother Ares, not by alliance but by consequence. The thief's lineage is deeply interwoven with a certain conflict you and Zeus manipulated, the one where my brother's honor was unjustly stained. Look to the hero who carried the weight of that slight. Hephaestus, in his own way, has offered his counsel. The thief is moving toward a deadline, and their target is tied to a historical slight against Ares, which links back to the labyrinth of Crete. But the question that remained was, why would the fate of Ares' honor be the driving motive for a lineage concerned with elemental water power in ancient history? The link seems tenuous, a political twist on a cosmic problem. The solution lies in finding the specific slight and the precise hero connected to Ares and Crete. The convergence of Clusta, Pythia's reference to the place where a hero finds his end, Hephaestus's mention of Ares' slight, and the connection to the Minoan collapse leaves only one destination. The labyrinth of Crete. You arrive on the ancient, sun-baked island, a place still thick with the residual psychic trauma of the Minotaur's sacrifice and the complex, oppressive rule of King Minos. The labyrinth itself, now mostly buried beneath millennia of seismic shifts and human neglect, is not just a maze of stone. It was a complex engineering marvel, an ancient subterranean structure designed by the legendary architect Daedalus. You descend into the darkness, the air immediately turning cool and thick with the smell of dust and stagnant water. You move not by sight, but by feeling the subtle energy traces. The labyrinth was built on a key fault line, subterranean junction where the African and Eurasian tectonic plates met a volatile area of immense constant seismic energy. The labyrinth's true purpose, you realize, was a hidden tidal lock. The intricate pattern of the maze, the constant flooding and drainage systems were not for confusing victims. They were Daedalus's attempt to channel and stabilize the wild, untamed water pressure from a massive, submerged aquifer, preventing a catastrophic localized earthquake that could sink the island. This is the local legend of the Hidden Lock. As you navigate the twisting corridors, you feel the familiar, high-pitched thrum of the Chalopsian iron. The thief is here. The core of the trident has been recently used, leaving a psychic residue. In the deepest, central chamber, the legendary location of the Minotaur's Larue, find not a monster's remains, but a perfectly engineered smooth basin now empty. This was the target. The thief had used this basin, designed to harness the seismic energy of the fault line, as a charging station to fully calibrate the trident core. The quirky detail you discover is the true nature of the Minotaur's lair. This chamber was not a sacrificial pen, but a monumental hydroacoustic amplifier. The Minotaur, the half-man, half-bull, was an animalistic channel for the powerful localized earth energies. Its frantic movements, combined with the chamber's acoustic properties, created a powerful sonic wave that Daedalus used to control the tidal lock. The thief used the Minotaur's legacy, the chamber, to test the ultimate power of the core's sonic resonance. You'll also find a small, intricate drawing carved into the stone wall. A cartographer's sketch of the labyrinth's exit route, but with an arrow pointing not out, but down. Beneath the labyrinth lies a far older, deeper structure, the true secret foundation of the Minoan civilization. The mainstream historical fact of the labyrinth's existence is inextricably linked to the hero Theseus, who slayed the Minotaur and escaped using the thread of Ariadne. But the deeper truth, hidden in your divine memory, is the slight against Ares. During the Titanomachy, Ares was briefly and unfairly implicated in an attempted uprising. Zeus and you forced him to provide a powerful magical ward to protect the newly formed Minoan kingdom, a ward that proved faulty. The thief, through this link, believes that by reclaiming the trident and destroying the Minoan legacy, they are simultaneously correcting the cosmic imbalance and avenging the slight against Ares. But the question that remained was, what was the true significance of the downward-pointing arrow? What lies beneath the hero's exit? And who exactly is the person who is using the king's plan and the god's sleight to execute this cosmic theft? The answer is buried in the substrata of the labyrinth, beyond the reach of any simple mortal. You emerge from the oppressive darkness of the labyrinth, your divine patience stretched to its limit. The thief is one step ahead, having used the Minotaur's chamber as a calibration point, and then, according to the secret map, descended into an even deeper, unknown structure. You need a tracker whose focus is pure, whose movements are silent, and whose loyalty is unambiguous. You need your niece Artemis. You find the goddess of the hunt not on Olympus, but in the deep forests of Arcadia, tending to her sacred deer. She is a figure of cold, crystalline beauty and absolute discipline, her silver bow gleaming faintly. She is already aware of the situation. Her divine connection to the wild places means she feels the subtle, unnatural silence in the deepest woods. The wild animals are subdued, their primal, natural fear replaced by a strange, quiet anxiety. The theft is an insult to the wild order, uncle, she states, her voice clear and without emotion. Nature requires chaos and order and balance. This thief seeks only one. You present her with the details, the Chalipsian iron, sonic frequency, the target, a place of pre-Olympian elemental power beneath Crete, and the tight timeline. Artemis nods, confirming her own cold observation. She has been tracking an impossibly swift shadow across the Aegean. This shadow is not a physical being, but an entity moving so quickly, so efficiently, that it registers only as a fleeting, unnatural silence in the living world. The sound of a footfall, the rustle of clothing, the displacement of ROL are nullified. They move with the silence of a god, but with the efficiency of a hero, she observes. I tracked the shadow from Santorini to Crete. It travels almost instantly, but leaves behind a curious trace, the scent of crushed marble and brine. The marble is a strange detail, an unnatural scent in the wild. You realize this is a quirky detail related to the thief's origin? Crushed marble suggests a presence near the surface, a place of great architecture and civilization, perhaps the court of King Caius, or even Olympus itself. Artemis offers another piece of vital intelligence. She notes that the shadow is not seeking to hide its speed, it is seeking to hide its intent. A true fugitive hides. One moves on a precise vector, following a geological map only the sea people could possess. The thief is not running from us. They are racing toward a deadline. This reinforces Hephaestus's timeline and the profound danger. The mainstream historical fact that surfaces here is the legendary swiftness of Artemis herself, often associated with the constellation Taurus, a heavenly marker for the ancient Greeks. Her ability to track something moving at divine speed gives a scale to the thief's prowess. This is not an ordinary mortal with a charmed artifact. This is a highly trained, dedicated operative, possibly a demigod or an empowered human of the highest order. They are heading east now, Artemis reports, pointing with a silver arrow that briefly illuminates the darkness. Not to the surface, but to the deepest point in the eastern Mediterranean, the place known as the Trench of the Serpent, the place that binds the Ophiuchus. The Titan Krios' prophecy returns with full force. The thief is heading to the final, true vulnerability of the earth, the place where the Olympian reign's greatest secret is buried. But the question that remained was, how does a creature moving with such absolute silence and perfect efficiency also leave such an obvious trace of marble and brine? Was the thief leaving a trail on purpose, daring the gods to follow, or was it a fatal flaw in the Chalipsian anti-seismic technology? Think Artemis, the silence in the woods deepening as the chilling reality sinks in. The destination is confirmed, the Trench of the Serpent, the final resting place of the Ophiuchus' entrails and the secret lock of the Olympian's reign. This is the place of true, primordial vulnerability. To understand the immediate path the thief is taking through the ocean, you need to consult the living memory of the sea itself, Nereids, the 50 daughters of the sea god Nereus. You summon the Nereids, your closest, most trusted court of sea nymphs, to a sun-dappled, submerged reef off the coast of Rhodes. They arrive in a shimmering rush of foam and light, their voices like the soft chime of countless bells. Their knowledge of the ocean's currents, thermal shifts, and secret routes is unparalleled. They are immediately distressed. The water around them feels wrong, not turbulent or violent, but unnaturally still and cold, like a vast submerged graveyard. Lord Poseidon, the eldest, Thetis speaks, her voice trembling. The ocean ... It is not whole. We can feel the absence of its regulating song. You explain the theft and the trail, the Chalipsian iron, the sonic frequency, the speed of the shadow. You ask them to track the precise recent path of the thief from Crete to the trench. The Nereids willingly delve into the current's memory, their consciousness merging with the vast body of the sea. Their collective report is profoundly chilling, detailing the chilling detail they observed. The thief moved like water without a sound. They explain that anything moving through the ocean, no matter how skilled or fast, creates a wake, a pressure displacement, and a low-frequency sound of friction. The thief, however, left only a temporary perfect void. It was as if the water parted and resealed instantly, one whispers. No turbulence, no sound. The entity was not merely traveling through the water, it was momentarily becoming the water, moving with the fluidity of the element. Yet without the consciousness of the element, this revelation forces a fundamental shift in your understanding of the thief. The entity is not merely using the sea people's technology, the sonic nullification of the Chalipsian iron, but is harnessing a deeper elemental control over the very physicality of water. This power is far beyond the scope of King Kaidas, or any mortal hero. The Nereids, reluctantly, admit they felt a strange, cold energy trace, almost a subdivine hum, that accompanied the void. This hum is the quirky detail that points to the thief's origin. It is a residual energy signature of a forgotten lower-tier deity associated with stillness and stagnation, a god of backwaters and silent pools whose very essence is antithetical to the wild, energetic spirit of the sea. The mainstream historical fact this points to is the complex hierarchy of minor deities and spirits in Greek mythology, the Potamoi river gods, and the Limnades, nymphs of lakes and still water. These were often ancient entities predating the Olympians, whose power was localized, forgotten, and highly specific. The thief could be an agent, of one of these forgotten, vengeful entities, a hero or demigod, empowered by a god of stillness, to negate the movement of the Sea Lord's domain. The Nereids confirmed the thief's precise, rapid vector toward the trench, concluding with a terrifying prediction: the thief is not planning to plunge the core into the ground. They are planning to use the core, its sonic signature, to unweave the elemental nature of the trench itself, releasing the cosmic lock and the raw power of the Ophiotaurus. But the question that remained was, why would a god of stillness seek to release the raw chaos of the Ophiotaurus? The two forces are diametrically opposed. Was this god a tool, or was the ultimate purpose of the theft even darker than the restoration of the Sea People's legacy? The time for searching is over. The time for confrontation is upon you. The thief is on a direct, non-stop path to the trench of the serpent, and the clock on the Trident's fail-safe is running out. You can no longer afford to operate alone or rely on the cautious intelligence of your divine kin. The time has come to pursue the trail of the brother's shadow, and the slight against Ares, even if it means forging an alliance with the most volatile and unpredictable of the Olympians. You find Ares, the god of war, where he is always most comfortable, on a desolate, ancient battlefield in Thracia, reviewing a ghostly army. He is magnificent in his battle armor, radiating raw, unfocused aggression. The very ground around him hums with the residual trauma of countless mortal conflicts. He is not surprised by your arrival. The sea has lost its voice, brother. The world is getting too quiet for my liking. Quiet is never a good sign for a god of war. You approach him, swallowing your millennia of rivalry and mutual disdain. My trident is stolen. The theft is tied to an insult against your honor, an insult related to the Minoan kingdom in the early days of Olympus. Ares lets out a short, brutal laugh that echoes over the field. There are 1,000 insults against my honor, Poseidon. You and Zeus treat me as a brute, not a strategist. Which specific slight are you referring to? You recall Hephaestus's clue, the faulty ward. The one where you were forced to provide the magical seal on the Cretan labyrinth. A seal that failed and brought upon you the scorn of Olympus. Even though the flaw was in Zeus's initial design, Ares's expression darkens. The playfulness gone, replaced by a cold, searing resentment. This history of rivalry runs deep. He saw the demand to guard the labyrinth not as a duty, but as a subtle punishment. A way to keep the dangerous god of war busy with a monster when his true battle should have been elsewhere. He confirms the link with the thief's king Kydas, the Sea People's royal line, sensing Ares' bitterness over the forced labor, established a secret, centuries-long proxy pact with the god of war. They offered to preserve the memory of his strategic genius as true, often ignored skill in their archives, in exchange for subtle, occasional military intelligence that helped them survive the Olympian purges. Ares reveals the quirky detail of this pact. He provided them with a rare, detailed military map of the Minoan coastal defenses, a map that showed the single, unprotected deep-sea channel leading straight to the labyrinth's foundation. He gave this not to destroy Minos, but to subtly undermine the authority that imposed his punishment. The agent they sent, Ares states, his voice low and intense, is not a god. It is a hero of the Saran line, one who was secretly raised in the court of King Kydas. I know this because he possesses the psychological profile of my greatest, most devoted mortal champions, a warrior of perfect discipline, absolute focus, and a profound internal sense of righteous injustice. The mainstream historical fact that underpins this is the concept of Ares' children and champions in Greek mythology. Figures like Diomedes and the Amazons, who were often defined by their unwavering discipline and tactical brilliance, not just their bloodlust. The thief is using the mental training of Ares' champions combined with the forgotten technology of the Sea People. The alliance is struck on a mutual recognition of Zeus's inherent unfairness. Ares agrees to track the final, subtle emotional signature of a perfectly disciplined warrior, heading for the fight of their life. But the question that remained was, if the thief possessed the psychological profile of Ares' champion, were they merely a pawn of King Kydas? Or had they internalized the centuries of injustice so completely that they now viewed the dismantling of the Olympian order as their own personal epic act of heroism? Their identity and their personal motivation is the final missing piece. The alliance with Ares is a volatile necessity, giving you access to a new, psychologically focused tracking method. The path is set. The thief, an unknown hero of the Sauron lineage. The final piece of the thief's identity lies in the intricate, tragic history of Crete, specifically the Trojan War's unseen strategy. Ares, using his knowledge of his own champion's minds, guides you back to the labyrinth's ruins. Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, famously provided the hero Theseus with a ball of thread to help him navigate the labyrinth and slay the Minotaur. But Ares points out the historical paradox. A simple thread, even a magical one. Ares reveals the unseen strategy of the Trojan War. The thread was not for navigation. It was a decoy. The real key to the labyrinth's deeper levels and its ultimate weakness was passed to Ariadne, not by Minos. This key was a scroll detailing the exact resonant frequency of the Chalipsian iron lock. The tragedy of Ariadne betrayed by Theseus on Naxos is the heart of the deception. When Theseus abandoned her, she did not simply waste away. She sought refuge and found it with the god Dionysus. The quirky detail is what she carried with her, not just her grief, but the secret knowledge of the sea people, which she passed not to a god, but to her own lineage with Dionysus. This is the link. The thief is a descendant of Ariadne's bloodline. This answers the question of how they knew the ritual, the history, and the vulnerability. They are a dual lineage hero, the strategic mind of the sea people king Caius' side. Combined with the forgotten, this mainstream historical fact surfaces in your mind. Dionysus's later worship often involved concepts of ecstasy and the breaking of boundaries. The thief, through this divine lineage, possesses the ability to temporarily break the boundary between their mortal self and the element of. They are not becoming water like a sea creature. They are using a Dionysian, unmaking power to negate the friction of their movement. The hero is named Lysander, a descendant of Ariadne and the protege of King Caius. Lysander is driven not by simple revenge. Lysander's current objective is twofold: to destroy the Ophiotaurus S binding at the Trench of the Serpent, and to use the released chaos to strike at the single largest, its most vulnerable symbol of the Olympians' control, hidden. A project of monumental engineering Zeus forced you to build to control the ancient cyclical flooding of the Nile. But the question that remained was, why? If Lysander was a descendant of Dionysus, was his psychological profile that of a disciplined Ares champion? Was the conflict a simple matter of revenge, or was the psychological complexity a greater weapon than the stolen core itself? You realize the final confrontation will not be one of brute force, but of psychological warfare, fighting a man who views his mission as correcting a cosmic betrayal. Lysander, the hero descendant of Ariadne and the protege of King Caius, is closing in on the Trench of the Serpent. His motivation is a complex mix of sea people, history, and a deep-seated desire to redeem his lineage from Olympian interference.
Oh.
But there is a final, darker layer to his psychological profile, the ultimate source of his righteous injustice. The curse of Tantalus's bloodline, Ares. Tracking the psychological signature of perfect internal discipline, masking an unquenchable need for justice, only makes sense in the context of one of the most cursed families in Greek mythology. You delve into the lineage of Lysander's mortal side, tracing it back through the Mycenaean kings. It's eventually arriving at the house of Atreus, and before that, the infamous Tantalus. Tantalus, a son of Zeus, was punished with eternal, maddening hunger and thirst in the underworld for his ultimate act of hubris, attempting to trick the deities by serving them his own son, Pelops. The quirky detail of this lineage is the curse itself. It's not just a physical affliction, it is a spiritual thirst for finality. Every descendant of Tantalus carries a subconscious existential need to end the cyclical, unsatisfying nature of the world, to find a final, ultimate resolution to the cosmic mess the Olympians created. Lysander is not simply looking for revenge. He is seeking to break the cosmic cycle itself. This revelation completely changes the stakes. Lysander's objective is not merely to restore the sea people or avenge Ares's slight. His ultimate goal is to force a final, definitive conclusion to the ongoing, destructive power games of the gods. Lee is seeking ultimate cosmic revenge by shattering the foundation of the Olympian reality. The mainstream historical fact is the cycle of retribution and bloody familial sacrifice that follows Tantalus's lineage, the horrors of Atreus, Thyestes, Agamemnon, and Orestes. This history is a stark tapestry of divine interference leading to mortal madness. Lysander, having studied this history, sees himself as the culmination of the curse, the one who will finally destroy the god's ability to manipulate mortal fate. His control and discipline, the Ares profile, is a necessary defense against the madness of the Tantalus curse. He weaponizes his discipline to focus the existential despair into a single, devastating action. The theft is now understood as the perfect psychological weapon. The trident's purpose is stability. Its core, when used by a hero of the Tantalus line, becomes a tool for existential collapse. Lysander is seeking to release the Ophiotaurus's power to create a localized, permanent cosmic void, a zone where Olympian power cannot exist, and then use that void to attack your dam. You realize the profound error in your initial thinking. The thief didn't need a single god's help. He had the combined, cumulative rage of 1,000 years of divine betrayal running in his veins. But the question that remained was, how did Lysander know the precise, immediate location of the Ophiotaurus's binding in the trench of the serpent, a secret known only to the three brother gods? The source of this final, critical piece of intelligence must be a breach of the highest order, leading directly back to Olympus. The final element of the conspiracy, the precise location of the Ophiotaurus' binding, can only have come from one source, God. Specifically, one with access to Zeus's deepest archives, one capable of moving unseen and unencumbered. This leads you to your nephew, Hermes, the messenger god, known for his cunning, his fluid loyalty, and his access to every secret chamber on Olympus. You summon Hermes not with a command, but with a challenge, to use his immense speed and unique perception to track the thief. Its most recent energy signature, the residual trace left after using the sonic calibrator in the labyrinth. Hermes arrives in a flash of gold, his winged sandals humming. He is characteristically aloof, but his eyes hold a flicker of concern. "Uncle," he says with a theatrical sigh, "the paper trail for the trident's core is cleaner than my own archives. You're looking for a ghost?" You show him the Chalipsian orb and the final destination. Explain the paradox of the Ophiotaurus's location, a secret that only you, Zeus, and Hades share. Hermes accepts the challenge. He engages his full divine speed, not moving on the earth, but within the subtle, interstellar trail of energy that interconnects all of Olympus's communication. He traces Lysander's psychic link back to King Kydos, and then from Kydos's court to a specific, unique data stream that had been intercepted from Zeus's private scrying pool. He finds a faint, bizarre trail of energy. Too advanced for simple Greek mythology, a continuous low-bandwidth data siphon. This is the quirky detail that proves the highest-level conspiracy. The theft of the secret location was not done by eavesdropping or breaking wards. It was done through a subtle, technological hack of the Divine Information Network. The location, Hermes reveals, was not found by Lysander. It was broadcast to him, a small, constant stream of coordinates, using a frequency just below the sensory threshold of any Olympian. It was a mathematical signal, not a prophecy or a vision, the source of the broadcast. Not a god, but an automated, centuries-old device, hidden deep within a seemingly mundane artifact in Zeus's treasury. This device was left behind by a forgotten pre-Olympian cosmic entity, who was briefly allied with Zeus during the Titanomachy. This entity demanded payment not in gold or power, but in a long-term information-sharing contract. The mainstream historical fact surfaces. The concept of an ancient Greece, the idea of sophistications, automated machines and devices, often attributed to Daedalus or Hephaestus. This divine bug is the ultimate manifestation of a device that has been silently broadcasting the secrets of Olympus to an external receiver for millennia. Hermes, however, does not reveal the identity of the forgotten entity. He only reveals the fact that the secret was leaked, not stolen. He then offers a final, critical piece of information, a personal observation that only the messenger god, the god of transitions and thresholds, could notice. Lysander's signature has suddenly changed, Hermes reports, his voice losing its customary flippancy. The Chalipsian core is doing more than just charging, it's morphing. He's not using the sonic frequency to break the Earth's lock. He's using it to prepare the core for its ultimate original function, a function that is not violent, But the question that remained was if the Trident's core was not intended for violence. In Lysander's ultimate goal was to break the cosmic cycle. What was the original true function of the most powerful elemental weapon in the cosmos? The answer lies not in power, but in purpose. The pieces are finally in place. The thief is the disciplined, Tantalus-cursed hero Lysander. The source of his information is an ancient technological leak, and his goal is to force a final cosmic conclusion. The final, most baffling clue is Hermes' observation. The Trident's core is morphing, preparing for an ultimate function that is not violent. You finally connect the dots between the Cyclops' strange alloy, the Titan essence, and the need for the ritual of the great stillness. You realize the ultimate humiliating truth about your most prized weapon, the Trident's true cosmic purpose. It's not a weapon, but a cosmic tuning fork. It was never meant to be a tool for creating seismic waves or tidal surges. Its primary original function was harmonization. The Cyclopes, instructed by the pre-Olympian entity that placed the listening device, wove the Titan essence into the core to create a constant, minute vibration that perfectly matched the natural, self-regulating frequency of the Earth's mantle and hydrosphere. This bizarre function meant that as long as the Trident was in your hand, its constant hum would force the Earth's chaotic elements, the raw, unformed energy left over from primordial times, to adhere to a stable, predictable, and manageable rhythm. It didn't grant you power. It granted you control over the existing power. This was the ultimate governor, a cosmic metronome. The quirky detail that proves this: the 3 tines are not for stabbing. They are receivers. The central tine receives the energy from the Earth's mantle. The 2 outer tines receive the energy from the global ocean currents. It harmonizes the 2 signals, preventing them from violently colliding. The moment the core was ejected, the Earth and the ocean began to lose their synchronous rhythm, resulting in the erratic tides and geological anomalies across the world. The chaotic elements are beginning to revert to their original primordial frequencies. Lysander, the Tantalus descendant, having fully internalized the divine betrayal of his lineage, knows this truth. He is not planning to break the Earth open to release the Ophiuchorus. He is planning to use the core ES sonic nullification to permanently cancel the Earth's frequency altogether at the Trench of the Serpent. The Trench of the Serpent, the binding site of the Ophiuchorus, is a naturally occurring point of cosmic resonance, where the Earth's natural frequency is strongest. By plunging the sonic-calibrated core into that point, Lysander will create a localized, permanent zone of elemental silence, a place where the Earth's core and the ocean's current no longer communicate. This will not cause a flood. It will cause the unmaking of the elements form, the ocean losing its essential, definable nature in that area. The mainstream historical fact that connects to this is the ancient philosophical concept of the music of the spheres, or harmonia, the belief that the cosmos operates based on perfect mathematical ratios and musical harmony. The Olympians, you realize, enforced their own selfish harmonia using the Trident. But the question that remained was, why was the Earth's core so vulnerable at the Trench of the Serpent? What profound act of deception or betrayal allowed Zeus to bind the most dangerous primordial entity at the single strongest point of cosmic resonance? The answer lies in the greatest lie of the Olympian age, the forgotten bargain. The realization that the Trident is a tuning fork, not a weapon, is a moment of cold, divine humiliation. It means your entire rule was predicated on the control of nature, not the command of it. The ultimate truth of Lysander's plan to cancel the Earth. Its frequency at the Trench of the Serpent forces you to confront the one secret your brother, Zeus, has guarded with more fury than any other. The nature of the Ophiuchorus' binding and the secret bargain that won the Titanomachy. You confront Zeus, not in the Great Hall, but on the peak of Mount Olympus, where the air is thin and raw power crackles. You present him with the evidence, the Chalcopsian iron, the sonic frequency, and the Trident's true function. The Trident is a lock. You state, your voice a low, threatening rumble that causes the air to vibrate. And the key to the lock is the Ophiuchorus. Tell me, brother, how did you manage to bind a creature whose entrails grant the power to defeat the gods at the very point of the Earth's strongest resonance? Zeus, for the first time in millennia, looks genuinely terrified. His thunderbolts flicker weakly in his hand. He confesses to the truth, a forgotten, desperate pact he made with a primordial entity, a nameless ancient god of cosmic stasis whose existence precedes the Titans. This entity agreed to help Zeus secure the Titanomachy, not through battle, but through a colossal act of spiritual and elemental freezing. In exchange, the entity demanded one thing: a guarantee of absolute stability for the Earth's core, ensuring its own eternal, unchanging existence. The quirky detail of the bargain? Zeus promised the entity that he would use his brother, Poseidon, to enforce the stasis. He then forced the Cyclopes to forge the Trident as the ultimate enforcement mechanism, the cosmic tuning, using the Titan essence as a temporary power boost. The Ophiotaurus was then bound at the trench of the serpent, not because it was the strongest lock, but because its raw, chaotic energy could be used to power the tuning fork for millennia. The Sea People's technology, the sonic frequency, was the key to this system. The frequency, Lysander's tool, was intended to be used only once, in the event of the entity's return, to permanently lock the Earth's frequency. "I lied to you, Poseidon," Zeus admits, the words tasting like ash. "I told you the Trident was a weapon to control the sea. I knew your ambition. But it was only ever a slave collar for the Earth, and you were the one forced to wear it." The mainstream historical fact this secret bargain aligns with is the earliest Greek concept of anon necessity or compulsion, a powerful, often impersonal force that even the gods cannot escape. Zeus's pact with the entity of stasis was a desperate bargain with necessity itself, trading freedom for victory. This is the profound betrayal. Your entire existence as the Lord of the Sea was a lie, a divinely imposed duty to maintain a static, unnatural order. But the question that remained was, if the core's ultimate unviolent function was to create elemental silence, why did Lysander, a hero of righteous injustice, believe this was the path to breaking the cycle of divine betrayal rather than merely replacing one form of control with another? The answer lies in the ultimate flaw of your own divine character. Lysander, the hero descendant of Tantalus and the Sea People, is not a simple villain. He is the mirror of your own greatest flaw, the one that created the perfect psychological vulnerability for the thief. You stand alone watching the storms brew in the heavens, realizing that your greatest weakness was always your unwillingness to be still. The quirky detail of your hubris, your constant need to express your power through movement's seismic waves, raging storms, the relentless churn of the tides, was an overcompensation for your secret, deep-seated fear of stagnation. Your nightly ritual of the great stillness was not a rest. It was a deeply resented, psychologically necessary moment where you allowed the raw, essential, still power of the sea to stabilize you. Lysander knew this. His knowledge of the ritual came not from a scroll, but from observing your psychology through the millennia. A lesson passed down by the patient, silent sea people who watched you from below. Lysander, as a Tantalus descendant, fears the same existential stasis you do, for a different reason. He fears the endless, unsatisfying cycle of divine intervention. His psychological profile, the discipline of Ares, is a shield against the maddening, cyclical thirst of his ancestor. He did not steal the Trident's core to create chaos, which is a temporary disorder, but to create elemental silence, which is permanent finality. He is going to end the cycle not with a bang, but with a profound, terrifying hush. The mainstream historical fact that relates to your hubris is the ancient belief in hubris in Greek mythology. It's not just arrogance, but the specific act of a mortal or god attempting to transgress the natural order and encroach upon the domain of others. Your transgression was internal. You refused to acknowledge the silent, still, and stabilizing power inherent in your own element. You fetishized movement. Lysander knew that, by taking the trident during the great stillness, he was striking at the moment you were most honest, most still yet, also most vulnerable. The theft was the ultimate psychological attack, a public demonstration that the master of the sea was powerless without his crutch. You understand the final trap? If you, in your rage and desire for quick recovery, attack Lysander with unbridled power, you will merely prove his point, that the Olympians are inherently too volatile to rule. Lysander is not waiting for a fight. He is waiting for a psychological surrender. He wants you to acknowledge the flaw in your rule and the lie of Zeus's pact. But the question that remained was if Lysander's goal was finality, and the trident's core was his only tool, who or what was the shadow figure who facilitated his movement, provided the Chalipsian orb, and embodied the absolute silence that the Nereids detected. The core is the how, but the shadow is the who. Lysander is at the trench of the serpent, preparing for the final, catastrophic act of elemental silence. You and Ares arrive, plunging into the dark, silent abyss. The trench is a horrifying sight, a deep tear in the Earth's mantle, where the raw, pre-primordial energies of the Ophiuchorus binding are visible as a twisting purple light. Lysander stands alone on a precipice of black rock, holding the trident's Chalipsian core. He is a man of perfect, still composure, his eyes burning with the cold, focused fire of generational vengeance. He has the psychological profile of an Ares champion, but the internal despair of Tantalus. "Lord Poseidon," he says, his voice unnaturally calm, resonating slightly against the Chalipsian core. "You are too late. The core is fully charged. I am here to end the lie, to give the sea back its freedom, its true, chaotic nature." You recognize the profound tragedy of his ambition, but you know the consequence of his act. You will not find freedom, Lysander. Only a final, unmoving silence. The earth will lose its music. As Lysander raises the core for the final plunge, you notice the shadow figure. It is standing directly behind him, mirroring his posture, but you cannot define its edges. It is an anthropomorphic, psychological shadow of a god figure composed entirely of the negative space around the concept of divinity. This is the truth. The thief was not Lysander. Lysander was the facilitator. The shadow is the quirky detail of the divine nature that none of the Olympians ever admit to possessing. The accumulated, pressed, unconscious of the three brother gods. The shadow is the embodiment of Zeus's paranoia, Hades' weariness, and your own repressed desire for stillness. It is the collective psychological consequence of the Titanomachy, part of the Olympian soul that never wanted the power, but merely the end of the conflict. The shadow is the forgotten, lower-tier deity of stagnation and silent pools, the one the Nereids sensed. It was the shadow that provided the Chalipsian orb and the mental training, cultivating Lysander as the perfect, focused vehicle for its own ultimate goal, the end of all divine motion. The mainstream historical fact surfaces, the ancient Greek concept of the eidolon, shadowy image or phantom of the living or the dead. This shadow is the eidolon of your combined divine selves, a subconscious entity that has been quietly working for millennia to correct the fatal error of your collective rule. Lysander, the Tantalus descendant, possessed the ideal psychological vulnerability, the thirst for finality, to accept the shadow's guidance, believing it was his own true heroic will. The shadow smiles, a movement that is merely a momentary absence of light. The core must be plunged, the cycle must end. The god of the sea never truly wanted his power. He merely wanted the silence, but the question that remained was, how do you defeat a foe that is merely the darkest aspect of your own repressed desire? And what words or actions could reach the hero who believes his final devastating act is a righteous one? The confrontation requires a cosmic intervention that only the true function of the trident can provide. The moment of truth arrives. Lysander, convinced of his heroic destiny by the silent influence of the shadow, plunges the Chalipsian core into the exact center of the Ophiuchorus's binding energy. The expected cataclysm and earthquake, a violent release of chaos, does not occur. Instead, an agonizing, deafening silence erupts. The anti-seismic frequency of the Chalipsian iron, amplified by the Earth's natural resonance, begins to work on the elemental physics of the region. The effect is terrifying. The ocean begins to lose its essential mythological form. The water around you does not evaporate, nor does it freeze. It simply stops being water in the conceptual sense. The chemical bonds of the HO molecule remain. But the spirit of the element, the consciousness of the current, the movement, the flow, is nullified. The water becomes thick, viscous, and ultimately stationary. It takes on the appearance of dark, solidified glass. The unmaking is spreading rapidly. Sea creatures caught in the wave of silence simply stop moving, their life force trapped within the petrified element. The abyss, your greatest domain, is becoming an inert, colossal museum of stasis. The shadow figure swells, feeding on the spreading stillness. It is over, Lord Poseidon. You failed to protect your domain, and now it finds its true rest. Perfect, eternal, unmoving silence. I have one. Ares realizing the ultimate consequence, the end of all conflict, all change. All life roars and attempts to engage the shadow, but his divine energy passes right through it. You cannot fight a repressed wish with a physical attack. You realize Lysander's intent was true. He sought to end the cycle, but the shadow's influence perverted the means. The hero of Tantalus has achieved his ultimate thirst, but not the freedom he sought, only a complete, static end. The quirky detail of the unmaking, as the water petrifies, the memories stored within the element, the lost history of the sea people. The echoes of the Thayer explosion, the screams of the Minotaur's victims are momentarily released, flooding your divine consciousness. You are overwhelmed by the ancient mysteries and the cumulative pain of the ages. The mainstream historical fact this event mirrors is the philosophical concept of nihilism, the ultimate destruction of meaning and value. Lysander, by seeking ultimate finality, has achieved the ultimate expression of cosmic nihilism. The key to stopping the unmaking is not to fight the shadow, but to convince Lysander. The shadow is shielded by the hero's righteous belief. But the question that remained was, what is the paradoxical weakness in the shadow's plan? And what simple human concept could shatter the mental discipline of a hero whose entire existence is a defense against cosmic madness? You must find the counterfrequency to the sonic nullification, a truth that restores the music of the spheres. The world is hardening into silence, the ocean's form unmaking itself at an alarming rate. You and Ares are powerless against the shadow, which grows stronger with every second of stillness. The only point of weakness is the heart of the hero, Lysander, stands rigid with the chilling satisfaction of a mission completed. Lysander is not a villain. He is a man of profound discipline and absolute, justified rage. You cannot defeat him with power, only with a truth that dismantles his Tantalus-cursed drive for finality. You forego the language of gods and power, and speak to him as the descendant of the sea people, the inheritor of the curse. Lysander, you have achieved the silence. You have broken the cosmic cycle. Look upon your work. Lysander looks down at the petrified sea, and then at the shadow, whose presence is now a vast, consuming void. He finally sees the true result. Not freedom, but a far greater, more terrifying bondage, the bondage of absolute stasis. This is not chaos, you continue, your voice resonating not with seismic power, but with raw personal desperation. This is the very stagnation the sea people feared. The shadow is the only thing that thrives in this ultimate stillness. You have traded my fickle, turbulent control for a far worse, eternal, unmoving rule. You appeal to the mortal's epiphany, the single, simple truth that shatters the Tantalus curse. Your curse, Lysander, is the thirst for finality. The ocean's nature is movement, the cyclical exchange of water, the endless tides, the promise of change. Finality is the ultimate contradiction of the sea. You have killed the very element your ancestors revered. This simple concept movement is the paradoxical weakness of the cosmic tuning fork. The Chalipsian iron, designed to nullify low-frequency sound, is helpless against a natural, high-frequency element that is its conceptual opposite. Lysander, the Ares champion, suddenly breaks his perfect discipline. He remembers the one quirky detail of his training with King Caius, the need to train his breathing to match the highest, most vibrant frequency of a crashing wave of sound above the range of the anti-seismic iron. His divine lineage from Dionysus, the god of ecstasy, and unleashed life ignites. He is not just the son of a curse. He is the son of vibrant change. Lysander grabs the core, not to plunge it deeper, but to lift it. With a final anguished cry, he throws the core not at the shadow, but straight up, into the turbulent air above the trench, and simultaneously unleashes the purest, highest frequency sonic wave he can muster, the wave of life and motion. The clash is instantaneous. The shadow screams, a sound like a million years of static electricity discharging at once. The core is instantly unbound from Lysander's psychic control, and powered by the sonic wave of pure life, flies directly back toward you, the deity it is chemically and psychically bonded to. The core slams back into your hand. The moment your divine flesh touches the Chalipsian iron, the core instantly rebonds with the shell, which Ares has brought from the palace. The trident is whole. The elemental music of the spheres instantly resumes. The unmade water shudders, and the powerful chaotic currents of the abyss rush in to fill the silence. The shadow collapses, its energy spent, resolving into a thin wisp of smoke that is instantly consumed by the returning motion. But the question that remained was, how does a god reclaim his stability after such a profound revelation of his own flaw? And what is the final cosmic price for this miraculous recovery? The answer is immediate and deeply personal. The trident is back in your hand. The moment it rebonds, the terrible internal thrumming ceases. The seismic pressure finds its vent, the tides regain their rhythm, and the ocean is whole once more. The cosmic tuning fork is fully operational, forcing the universe back into the Olympian rhythm. Lysander, exhausted but free of the shadow's influence, and the Tantalus curse's thirst, collapses onto the rock. He is no longer a hero of righteous vengeance, but a mortal man who touched cosmic power. You approach him, the trident humming a low, powerful chord of stability. You have the option to punish him, to end the threat of the Sea People's lineage forever. But your own profound psychological journey, the realization of your own hubris, and the lie of your reign prevents it. You do not punish him. You see, not a foe, but a mirror. You sought finality, Lysander, you say, your voice now infused with a measured, deep authority. But the only constant in the universe is the cycle. You are a hero because you chose change over stasis. You do not destroy the Sea People's lineage. You acknowledge their purpose. You ensure that the deep-sea memory and the advanced knowledge of King Kaida's escort will remain preserved. Not as a tool of revenge, but as a silent, continuous correction to the Olympian narrative. The cycle is not broken. It is merely refined. Poseidon regains the trident, but at a profound cosmic cost. The cost is a loss of your absolute, tyrannical control. The shadow's presence, though dissipated, left a faint psychic signature in the trident's core. This signature, the quirky detail of the final recovery, means that from this day forward, the trident will emit a fractionally less powerful, stabilizing frequency, a deliberate, minute margin of error. This slight, almost imperceptible flaw ensures that the ocean will never be completely under your control again. It will retain a small degree of its wild, natural, chaotic will attribute to the Sea People and the truth Lysander sought. The tides will be slightly more unpredictable, the deep-sea currents slightly more autonomous. This is the ultimate cosmic consequence. The cycle will repeat. Because the trident is not perfect, because the gods have been revealed to be flawed and deceitful, the idea of an ultimate correction will endure in the mortal world. Your vulnerability is now a permanent, systemic feature of the cosmos. The mainstream historical fact that closes the loop is the eventual decline of the Olympian power structure. In later centuries, as new religions and philosophies emerge, the gods become less involved in human affairs. This subtle shift, the slight instability of the cosmos, is the true root of their eventual retreat. They were forced to step back because their weapons were no longer absolute. You watch Lysander ascend back to the surface world, no longer a pawn, but a man carrying the weight of a secret truth. The earth has its tuning fork, but the music is now deliberately imperfect. The age of absolute divine certainty is over. Now the sound fades, the crashing of the returned currents softens, and the vast, cold silence of the deep-sea trench recedes. You can feel the chair beneath you again, the air of your room, the distant sounds of the night outside. The trench of the serpent has sealed its wound. Lysander the hero walks among the mortal world, carrying the terrible, necessary truth that even the weapons of the deities are flawed, and the ancient mysteries they sought to bury will always eventually surface. The ocean is stable, but not static. The Greek mythology you thought you knew is once again revealed to be a magnificent, dangerous lie constructed to hide a painful truth. Close your eyes one last time and hear the gentle, irregular rhythm of the wave. It is no longer the perfect, predictable metronome of a fully controlled element. It is the sound of life, of constant small changes, a subtle, vital imperfection that whispers a warning. The cosmos is now a fraction more free and a fraction more dangerous. This is the true legacy of Poseidon's lost trident, a testament not to the god's power, but to the unstoppable, quiet force of human endurance and the memory of cosmic injustice. Sleep well, knowing that the greatest battles are not fought with thunder and storm, but with knowledge and stillness. The ocean is vast, and its secrets are endless.